Hello friends, this is the first video of a series in which I build my PC Sound Legacy Retro PC. Before that I did a survey and asked you which system I should build, and it should be a Pentium 1 class PC. I have picked out all my Pentium motherboards and present them to you here. At the end I select one board that I will install, but I'm curious which board you would have chosen, so feel free to write me in the comments please. I pre-sorted the boards by AT and ATX. We will start with the older AT mainboards. Board number 1 is the Biostar MB8500 TVD/A. It is equipped with 512 kilobytes of cache and with the Intel VX chipset, which is also called the Triton 3. One drawback of this board is that the maximum cacheable area of the RAM is 64 megabytes, no matter how much cache you have installed. It supports SD-RAM as well as PS2 eDO-RAMs, and here we have 2 SD and 4 PS2 banks, but you can't use them together. So you have to choose if you use SD-RAM or PS2 RAM. I have many RAMs of both, but I think I would choose SD-RAM as these are easier to handle and maybe also a little bit faster. We also have 4 ISA and 3 PCI slots. As it was typical at that time, the controllers are already integrated here. What I really like is the PS2 mouse connector. This is a rarity on AT boards. Here we have the linear voltage regulators. These are not very efficient and they dissipate a lot of heat. And Biostar spends them big heat sinks, and I think this is a good idea because it will help to prolong the lifetime of these regulators. And yeah, this is pretty cool because many other mainboard manufacturers don't spend big heat sinks, and often these regulators die after a few years. And yeah, I think this is not a problem with this board. Very nice. We have an American Megatrends BIOS, and this is another rarity. This board comes with an Odin clock chip, but not with an internal battery. We have an external lithium coin cell on this board, which is pretty nice because these clock chips with integrated batteries tend to die after a few years, and then you have to modify the clock chip. So this was board number 1. I will show you the specs of the Intel VX chipset, and then we will continue with board number 2. Board number 2 is the Asus TXP4. Here we have the Intel TX chipset, which already comes in the more advanced BGA package. Here again, for comparison, the Intel VX on the Biostar motherboard. The TX is also called the Triton 4 and is therefore the direct follower of the Triton 3 VX. The main advantage of the TX chipset is the support for Ultra DMA33, which significantly increases the maximum data transfer rate of the hard drive. In addition, we now have USB 1.1 for the first time, but Asus realized this via a proprietary connector, unfortunately. With a little effort, you can certainly build a header yourself. The pin assignment can be found in the manual. Otherwise, we have 4 PCI slots and 3 ISA slots on this mainboard. And this time we see an award BIOS here, also with a lithium coin cell. As with the Biostar, we also have 2 SD-RAM and 4 PS2 RAM banks. We also have an ATX power connector here, which is pretty nice because we can use more modern power supplies then. This motherboard supports bus speeds from 50 to 75 MHz and a ratio of a maximum of 2.5 times. According to this imprint, this motherboard supports CPUs from the Pentium up to the K6 processor with 266 MHz. I will now show you the specs of the Triton 4 chipset, and then we continue with motherboard number 3. Board number 3 is the MNIC NMC5VXC with the VIA VPX chipset. On paper, this chipset is very powerful. It supports Ultra DMA33 and unlike Intel, the maximum cacheable DRAM area is 512 MB instead of just 64 MB on the Intel boards. Processors up to 266 MHz are supported as well. The RAM area is a bit sparse. We just have one DRAM bank and two PS2 RAM banks. Otherwise, this mainboard has no special features. I'll now show you the details of the VIA VPX chipset before we go to the next motherboard. Last but not least, board number 4. This is one of the first Pentium mainboards that were released in the earlier 90s. We have the Intel 433LX chipset, date code is from 1992. It only features 5 volts Intel Pentium CPUs with 60 or 66 MHz. Here are 5 ISA slots and 3 PCI slots. We see many surface-mounted components here, and this chipset is much less integrated than the later ones. But we already have the controllers on board. Pretty rare and nice mainboard in my opinion. So this is it with my AT boards. Now let's take a closer look on my ATX motherboards. Board number 5 is this beautiful board called the GA5ax ATX from Gigabyte. This board comes with the Intel TX chipset we knew already from one of the previous AT boards, but it has some cool features like auto-detect CPU voltage and a multiplier up to 5.5 times. Here are 4 PCI and 4 ISA slots, one shared. A word BIOS and lithium coin cell. 2 SDRAM and 4 PS2 RAM slots are present. Because it is ATX, the USB connectors as well as the PS2 connectors are here. Board number 6 is this DFI K6XV3 Plus/66 in revision B2. Phil from Phil's Computer Lab made a video on this board and I will link it to you in the description. This is a SuperSocket 7 board supporting a front-side bus of 100 MHz and should be able to run any Socket 7 CPU available. The chipset is the VIA MVP3, which is, besides the Aladdin, one of the few chipsets supporting the Advanced Graphics Port, also known as AGP, for the Socket 7. Besides the 4 PCI slots, we also have 3 ISA slots, one shared, so enough options for my retro sound cards as well. Pretty nice board, isn't it? Here we have another mainboard with the VIA MPV chipset, but this one only has one ISA slot, 5 PCI slots, one AMR or audio modem riser slot, and of course also the AGP slot as well. We also have sound on board this time, but of course, this is no advantage for me as I want to install a dedicated sound card. The AC97 sound chip is also from VIA. According to the imprints, this board supports FSBs up to 133 MHz. I don't know if it will run stable on 133 MHz, and if you know, comment down below. So again, a beautiful SuperSocket 7 board, albeit I don't like the one and only ISA slot here. Number 8 is this Gigabyte GA5ax with the legendary Acer Labs Incorporated Aladdin M501541 chipset. We have 2 ISA and 5 PCI slots, one shared, and of course the AGP slot as well. This board supports a wide range of voltages from 1.3 up to 3.5 volts. FSB goes from 66 to even 140 MHz. Awesome! multiplicator is from 1.5 to 5.5. So 5.5 times 140 is an incredible 700 MHz, and I doubt it will run this speed stable with the settings. So a very beautiful board without sound and 2 ISA slots. I think this is my favorite so far. I now will show you the specs of the Aladdin chipset, and then we continue with the last mainboard. Here we have the Biostar M5LA, which is very similar. It also has 2 ISA but 4 PCI and also 1 HGP slot. Chipset also is the Ernie M1541. We have 3 SD RAMs, but this one only supports 100 MHz FSB and a multiplier of 4.5. So if this board works, I think this will be my choice. ATX boards make it possible to easily use modern PSU and modern cases. As alternative, I would choose this wire-based board. Let me know which one you prefer or if you would choose another one. I also like this Intel-based ATX board for a system up to Pentium 233 because this chipset is very stable and will be supported by Windows 98 SE out of the box. So I would prefer these ATX boards over the older AT boards, but this is just my opinion. In the next video we build the board into the case and we will select one of my CPUs. So stay tuned, like the video and subscribe to the channel. I'm Ernie, PC Sound Legacy.